The following is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys? Yeah!
Go Cowboys!
Let's go, baby!
Are you ready for a break?
Yes.
Are you ready for a break?
Absolutely.
Ready for a break?
Yeah, and so much for that.
It's time for The Break on DallasCowboys.com.
We were on a break!
With Ambar Garcia, Brian Broaddus, Patrick Walker, and Derek Eagleton.
It is Tuesday, August 29th, 2023, season 19, episode number 22. Welcome to the latest edition of The Break. We're live from the SWBC Mortgage Studios at the Star. We got the full crew back in today, and it's a great day to have everybody back in studio because today is cut down day. We are going to be breaking that down for you guys. I got my analysts here. They're going to tell you their best thoughts on what we think will happen here when the Cowboys have to make their final cuts to get down to the final 53-man roster. Before we do that, though, Cowboys make a move last week since the last time we had a show. They acquire quarterback Trey Lance for a fourth-round pick. Let's start first with, what do you guys think was the strategy behind this? Because I think that's where most of the conversation on this move has been. What do you think was the Cowboys' strategy in going out and spending a fourth-round pick to pick up a guy like Trey Lance?
I think they're playing the long game, obviously. When you look at Trey Lance, you have to look at where he is right now versus, what the scope of what he might do coming in. Because if you look at it right now, that's more realistic to what the Cowboys' plan is going to be. They're trying to develop him as a backup quarterback at worst case. So worst case, he's going to be your definitive backup in the post-Cooper Rush era, which could be as early as 2024 if Trey Lance develops quickly enough. But I'm of the mindset and I'm of the understanding in having these conversations. I know Brian has had them as well. This move is in no way to leverage against Dak Prescott. This is not that move. This is something the Cowboys are looking at and saying, hey, we're not going to pick up this guy's fifth-year option. So it's a 2-year plan. Try to develop him. If he turns into a definitive QB2, wonderful. You gave up a fourth-round pick for a definitive developmental QB2. You've been trying to draft a development guy for the past couple of years, and you've not done it. Best case is he develops well enough in that you can maybe trade him in 2 years, and maybe you lose that fourth up front, but maybe you get a third rounder if he can prove he can be a capable NFL starter. So they're playing the long game with Trey Lance, and the only problem I have with it was just the compensation itself. The fourth rounder was right there up against my hard line, which was a fifth-round pick. If you go back and listen to what John Lynch said, what Shanahan said, they were actually pleasantly surprised to get a fourth. But I know the Cowboys were in a situation where they really wanted Trey, and a couple of other teams came into the conversation. Maybe those other teams threw fifths on the table. Jerry, Stephen, and Will said, hey, let's just get it done, put a fourth on the table, and here he is.
Yeah, I worked for a general manager that gave up an extra one for Joey Galloway when he really didn't have to. Just he wanted the player that badly. Mm-hmm. And I think it goes back to how they saw Trey Lance grade-wise. When you look at where he's at on their board, top of the second round, that's the Cowboys have a history of not tanking seasons to get high draft picks. And the way to get your quarterback, maybe it's a franchise or a future quarterback for a lot of teams, is be poor. You have a bad season and pick in the top 5. Cowboys aren't going to do that, and they have a history of this. They have a history of not. We have a history of you go back to when Jerry got the team and the Steve Walsh, the supplemental picks. You go back and you think about Quincy Carter. You go back when you start to think about working out baseball players. You start to think about all those things.
Good old days.
It's never been a situation where we're going to take the 4th overall pick and draft a quarterback. Had an opportunity a couple of years ago to take the 10th pick and maybe get Justin Fields. Didn't do that. So they're more willing to try and say, listen, we had this guy on our board at a certain spot. He's available. The 4th round pick is, to me, I don't look at it as strongly as you do. And I love to draft. I love picks. I think it's something you can get back. Dallas last year, you guys had some great audio and video of Jerry Jones talking about Kansas City moving back 5 spots and picking up a 3. That's how things work. You don't worry about that. Where they need to work on now is getting the player in, and getting him acclimated. And I mean acclimated when you have 20 some odd coaches. Put these coaches to work. There needs to be post-practice where he's out there with scout team receivers. He's out there learning the offense. He needs to have a practice after a practice is what he really, really needs. And, I think it's more about at least gives you options. The thing with Dak Prescott, you might let this thing ride. This is the one organization the general manager is not going anywhere. He's not. That's just the way it's built in for the organization. That's the way they operate, and that's just fine. Most teams have a general manager that has to have a quarterback or they get fired. So this team can play a game where, okay, we're willing to move on. We're not going to pay a quarterback $50 million. We're not going to do that in 2 years. They have those options. Maybe Trey Lance does develop enough to where you say, we can sign him for this, we can play him, and then we can build our team around that. I think that's the direction really that they're going with this addition.
Yeah, when the news started coming out, it was one of those WTF moments, like what is going on? But it makes sense now after you sit and analyze the whole situation. It makes perfect sense. At the time, though, it just felt like when speaking about a trade, the last thing on my mind would be to address the quarterback position. But if we remember heading into the draft earlier this year, Jerry Jones did come out and say they were going to draft a quarterback, and it did not play out that way. They didn't. So, quarterback was as part of their needs in wanting to develop a younger guy. This is not a proven guy, but I think it plays into kind of what they were looking for and what they've come out and said that they look for every year in the offseason to keep developing these young guys. So, makes perfect sense. Just very, very crappy situation, which I'm sure we're going to talk about Will Greer, but just the moment of when it happened and everything we experienced for that game.
I kind of feel like, though, this is just me, and maybe it's the hardened personnel guy in me. If Will Greer would have played well for 3 weeks, maybe you don't think about.
No, that's a fact.
You don't think about this.
That's a fact.
And it's terrible timing, but you're also in a situation where they talk about this, and they're very proud of this. They talk about personnel acquisition as a 24/7 job around here. Your job is to build your team, whether, you feel like you got a third quarterback or you don't, or you have the opportunity to add a guy you had on your board in the second round. These things present themselves throughout. And we can cry for Argentina and all that stuff like that when it comes to Will Greer after a game. But my thought is, I'm thinking like, bro, if you'd have played well in 3 weeks, the 3 weeks you had an opportunity to play, maybe they don't make this decision, And I'm all about team building. I'm all about trying to get better. Maybe that's the personal side of the business I kind of pull myself back from. But I think these players
have Dak calling the plays for him.
Yeah,
maybe that was that. Maybe that was the extra.
No,
help
I give Dak a lot of credit, and I was critical of this because in our pregame show, I was sitting there thinking if I was a player that was fighting for my job, I would, do you think enough of me to do everything in your power to help me maybe make this team? And I thought Dak calling the plays, yeah, it's unusual and all that. If one of the other assistants would have called plays, I kind of understand. But to me, it's one of those things that was kind of strange the way it went out. It worked out fine. Dak did a hell of a job.
Yeah.
He really did. And, and to Will Greer's credit, he did a hell of a job too. Mm-hmm. He just needed to do a hell of a job against Jacksonville and Seattle and then also this Raider team. And maybe they're not thinking about this. Maybe they're not thinking about Trey Lance.
Yeah, but I think the thing about it is, even if, let's say, Will may have played better earlier in the preseason, I still think this is an intriguing opportunity for the Cowboys with Trey Lance. I mean, they had a very high grade on this guy. As you mentioned, Amber, they went into the draft this year thinking, hey, if we have an opportunity to pick up a quarterback, we'd want to do it. And so you knew that was something they wanted to improve on. The way I look at it is, I really don't think this is necessarily about Dak. This is about talent acquisition. Your old boss, Bill Parcells, used to say it. We're in the talent acquisition business.
Right.
And at a position like quarterback, you can never have too many really good quarterbacks. Right. Let's say he develops into a really great quarterback. That doesn't necessarily mean he'll be here. Correct. That doesn't necessarily mean that Dak will be gone. what that means is you may have two good quarterbacks, and then you may say, okay, which one do we think gives us the best chance to win now and in the future? Whichever other one you got, maybe you decide we're going to keep Dak, we're going to re-up the deal, we're willing to pay him $50 million or whatever that number is. And guess what, NFL? We're open for business.
Exactly.
Who wants Trey Lance on their team after we've shown you in the preseason in a game or two he can do some things, and we've got you intrigued now talking to all the other teams, and those other 31 teams now come bidding. That's where this is an advantage for the Cowboys. More so than anything you could have gotten from Will Grier. Like, there aren't going to be teams that are beating down your door for Will Grier. Now, you start showing a former first-round pick, number 3 overall pick, that now is starting to show progress.
Flashes,
you're going to have a lot of teams who are very interested in possibly trading for him. That's the value of going out and getting Trey Lance for a 4th-round pick and maybe turning that into a first-round pick,
and that's
a
what
second-round pick,
of.
whatever round pick you can get if you decide to part ways.
It's a Bill Belichickian model, right?
Yeah.
And no, I'm not comparing Dak Prescott to Tom Brady, but if you're talking as far as the business model is concerned, Brady was there in New England. They went and got Jimmy G. Right, and they got Jimmy G, and they let Jimmy G develop behind Tom Brady. And then eventually they flipped Jimmy G to San Francisco. So to my point earlier, this is what I feel like is the best case scenario for the Cowboys. And yes, of course, they're going to have options if Trey Lance develops, but he would have to develop in order to supplant Dak Prescott. He would have to develop at strides that would blow our minds between now and a possible contract extension. And I just don't see it because it's not Trey Lance versus Dak right now. It's Trey Lance versus Cooper Rush.
Yeah, but it gives you options.
Right.
You know, it gives you options.
Course,
and like I said, there's going to be a team that's not going to pay a quarterback that is a top 10 quarterback $58 million. There's not going to be. Somebody's going to step up and they say it's more important that, why do all these teams have success or talk about the success that they have with a quarterback that's under a rookie contract? Because that takes up the majority of your cap. So to me, I think it gives them options. I don't think the plan here was, hey, let's get Trey Lance and trade him. I don't think that's the plan. I think the plan here is to really figure out if Trey Lance can play. That, I think, is the plan.
Right, that's the plan, but I think all options are open to them.
Right.
So I agree with you. I don't think their plan going in was we're going to get him to trade him. I do think their plan was we're going to get him to develop him, and then we will see what happens. Maybe we decide to trade him. Maybe we decide to keep him.
Right.
Maybe he's our backup. Maybe there's some universe where he's good enough to be a starter.
Sure.
The point is, they wanted to develop him because of where he was drafted and the grade they had on him.
No question.
They figured they could get that out of him.
No question.
Right? Or at least wanted to give it a try.
Yeah.
Right.
It just gives you a lot more options to think about if, in fact, the quarterback numbers get crazy. There might be a situation with the Cowboys that they let this contract with Dak ride the next 2 years and see where they're at.
The interesting part about that theory, that route, if they decide to go that route, they would be then toward the end of Trey Lance's deal, which means they don't get the benefit of that first year contract with him either, because if they've developed him, now his agent's going to say, hey, man, I want that same money all these other quarterbacks out there are getting, right?
It might be a situation where you're not paying $58 million to a guy either.
Maybe. Maybe. All right, we appreciate you guys joining us. We got a lot more to go. We're going to get into the second and third segments today. We're going to cut down
the show right
No,
there.
not yet. No, we haven't gotten to the guts of the show yet. We're going to get into the roster cut down. We'll do that when we come back. This is DallasCowboys.com radio.
Todd thought it would be secure to jog in the cheetah savanna. Todd believed the big cat repellent he bought online was reliable. And now, Todd is trying to be faster than this cheetah that can run 80 miles per hour. But the good news is, Todd has AT&T 5G that is fast, reliable, and secure. And he learned the best thing to do is stop running and toss her the backpack with the beef stew. AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure. It's not complicated.
5G requires compatible plan and device. 5G may not be available in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
Cowboys fans, after that move, we've just coined the term Rowdy Replay. Let's roll back the tape.
Okay, there's our mascot Rowdy cheering on the boys. And now he's on his phone, on his Bank of America mobile banking app?
Staying on top of his finances with his virtual financial assistant, Erica.
Bank of America's digital tools are so impressive. Cowboys fans just can't stop banking. Learn more at bankofamerica.com/can't stop banking.
Erica is only available in the English language. You must download the latest version of the mobile banking app, only available on select mobile devices. Message and data rates may apply. Member FDIC.
They say champions are remembered, but legends are never forgotten. United Ag and Turf offers a winning lineup of John Deere equipment built to tackle any challenge on and off the field. Legendary John Deere tractors, combines, residential mowers, commercial mowers, compact construction equipment, Gator utility vehicles, and a full line of golf and sports turf equipment. United Ag and Turf, the official Ag and Turf equipment supplier of the Dallas Cowboys. Visit unitedagandturf.com to find a location near you.
Hey Cowboys fans, ready to spice up your next watch party? Bring Yo Quiero guacamole and be the game day hero. Yo Quiero means I want, and we know you want great, fresh tasting, ready to serve guacamole for your home gating and tailgating events. Made with real avocados and the perfect blend of spices, it will be the star of any party. You can find us at your local Albertsons or Tom Thumb in the deli section. If you can't find it, talk to your store manager and tell them, Yo Quiero guacamole.
Back to the break.
The 2023 Dallas Cowboys season at AT&T Stadium is right around the corner, and limited season game tickets are available now. Don't miss your chance to see the Cowboys live at AT&T Stadium when they host the NFC East rivals Eagles, Giants, and Commanders, plus the Jets, Patriots, Rams, Seahawks, and Lions. Visit DallasCowboys.com/tickets or SeatGeek.com, the official ticketing provider of AT&T Stadium.
Welcome back. It is the second segment of the break. We are live from the SWBC Mortgage Studios at the Star. Today we're going to talk about roster cuts. Oh, yeah. This segment brought to you by blockchain.com. Ding. Ding. Okay, got it. We're going to talk about roster cuts today, and I want to preface this by saying, and I want to say this as much for us as I do for those out there listening. I know that we get into the habit of talking about NFL players as though they are commodities, but let's remember they are people. And so our conversation today, although we're going to be talking about guys losing their jobs, we're going to be respectful of them. And for those of you out there who will be talking about them on social media, remember these are people with families who will be, for some of them, this will be the end of their football careers. And so we'll talk about it with respect. But at the same time, we will talk about who's going to make this team and who will not. We're going to go through each position. And what I want you guys to do is I want you to do two things. One, I want you to tell me how many people at this position you think they'll keep, and then give me the names of those that you think will stick around. I'll throw some names out there for you to help you out, and then we'll try to see if we can narrow this thing down. So let's talk about the quarterback position. I think this one should move pretty quickly. We all, I think, agree. 3 quarterbacks, Dak Prescott, Cooper Rush, Trey Lance. All agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed. Let's move on to the running back position. How many do you think they'll keep, and who do they keep? They got Tony Pollard, Rico Dowdle, Deuce Vaughn, Ronald Jones, Malik Davis, maybe even Hunter Lepke. Had a nice game in the final preseason game. If you want to keep a fullback, maybe he would be your guy. What do you think will happen at the running back position?
I'm carrying 3. I'm going Pollard, Dowdle, and Deuce. I'm trying to get Malik and Hunter Lepke back onto the practice squad.
Agreed.
Same. Retweet.
Repost.
So in that
exit.
In that, you guys are completely moving away from Ronald Jones.
Unfortunately.
Well, he's on suspended list. What I'm doing is I'm putting him on suspended.
He still stays here.
Yeah, but I don't have to waive him or anything like that. I'm just going to put him on the suspended list, and after 2 weeks, if something happens with my running backs,
insurance,
I'm going to have him there.
I got you. So you're just deferring the decision.
Yeah.
But if nothing happens, you're saying at the end of 2 weeks you would let him walk.
Yeah. If nothing happens.
If nothing happens, right? Which
but,
in the NFL we know.
But I'm going to use the suspended list to my advantage.
That's what you got Malik Davis for.
Now just to be clear, the suspension list is not the same as, like, for example, if you wanted to keep a guy that you were going to ultimately put on IR, you would have to put them on the roster first, then move them to IR. So they have to be on that 53 initially. It's not the same for the suspension list, you're saying.
Okay. Straight. You can put him right in that category.
Got it. Perfect. So everybody agrees 3 running backs. It would be Tony Pollard, Rico Dowdle, and Deuce Vaughn on the final roster.
Yes.
Got it. All right, let's move on to wide receiver. How many do you keep and who do you keep? CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks, Michael Gallup, Jalen Tolbert, Kavontae Turpin, Simi Fehoko, Jalen Brooks, maybe even. Where do you go?
I go with 6, and Simi Fehoko's off that list that you had for me. So I went with Cooks, Turpin, Gallup, Tolbert, and then Lamb is what I went.
So Lamb, Cooks, Gallup, Tolbert, Turpin, and you said Brooks.
Yeah. Is that 6?
That's 6.
That's 6. You go 5?
No, I'm right there with you on 6. The conversation I was having in my head was Jalen Brooks versus Simi Fehoko.
All right, so let's have that debate. You're saying you go, Brian, you're saying you go Brooks.
Yeah.
You tell me why Simi Fehoko would be a better option than Brooks.
I think Simi is – well, the thing with Jalen Brooks is he came in and came on strong camp, strong preseason as well. Simi had an up and down training camp. When it was down, it was down. When it was up, it was way up. So, but Simi also has a longer tenure in this current system, the familiarity with the coaching staff, Dak Prescott, Cooper Rush, obviously. So there's a lot to be said for that as well as far as value is concerned. But the more I think about it, it's 51-49. I'm right there with Brian. I think that you get Jalen Brooks on the 53, and then I would try to get Simi on the practice squad.
Which you probably could.
And I think you could. I think there's a greater chance that you get Simi on the practice squad than you'd get Jalen Brooks on the practice squad. Because that's also a part of the equation as well when you're talking about these roster cuts. Who of these two players, whatever the two players might be in that conversation, if you want both of them to remain in Dallas, who has the better chance of us, making it to the practice squad? In this instance, I think it'd be Simi over Jalen. So for me, I'm right there with Brian. Take a little convincing of myself, but I'm right there. Gallup, Cooks, Lamb, Tolbert, Turpin, because Turpin has to have a spot, and then I'll go Jalen Brooks. Close call, 51-49.
Man, I just debated on this position. I almost kept 5, and because everybody keeps telling me that Jalen Brooks could play special teams, and I haven't seen it where with my eyes, and I really focus on trying to find him on special teams. They talk about him as a gunner. They talk about him on all these cover guy. They talk about him in all these ways. I was kind of waiting for that for Simi Fehoko. I think Simi Fehoko has had his opportunity. Health hasn't always been in his favor. But I feel like, though, that with Brooks, from what I've seen from him, his ability to go get the football, the crossing routes that he's able to run, the potential for some special team stuff, he's going to be the sixth receiver. He's going to probably be inactive every single week. But I think to have the insurance of a guy that can play the special teams, he looks like the game's not too big for him. He comes in, he makes plays. He works with Dak, I think, exceptionally well. So to me, that's why I took a chance on keeping him, just because I think there's a little bit more to his game. I kind of understand what Simi already is.
See, that was what made the difference for me, is the fact that even though they're kind of right there, I feel more intrigued about Jalen Brooks and what he can give you. I want to see more of him, as opposed to Fehoko, that we've had somewhat a longer time period to be with him and look at him. I'm like, okay, he's still kind of developing, but what Jalen Brooks has given you in this short amount of time just keeps me a lot more intrigued and wanting to see him, more of him, and not ready to part ways with him just yet.
Well, the great point that Brian made is when it comes to Simi Fehoko, coming into this training camp, it was just all about, can he remain healthy? And if he remains healthy, can he challenge for WR4? Well, Jalen Tolbert ran away with WR4. And now here we are having the conversation, not Simi versus Tolbert, Simi versus the other Jalen, the 7th round pick. So in that instance, you add in what you've seen from Jalen Brooks as far as potential is concerned, and you don't write off Simi Fehoko completely, but you do look yourself in the mirror and say, hey, you got to be more intrigued with Jalen Brooks right now, and then try to get Simi on the practice squad.
I would even make the argument, I go to what Brian kind of mentioned there. I think I would go 5 at this position.
Yeah.
The way I look at this is,
I struggle with.
So you're trying to run heavy somewhere.
Well, exactly. I look at this defense. I think it's going to be a much tougher cut. You would be cutting some very valuable players if you start cutting down into that defense, particularly the secondary and maybe the defensive line. So that being said, I think I would go at 5 because I feel like the 5 are a very, very strong 5. Mm-hmm. I think you got a good rotation with those 5. And here's the interesting part. I actually think you can get both these players to your practice squad. Yeah. One thing I've learned over the years is we watch a Jalen Brooks throughout training camp, and we think, man, there's no way you're getting him to your practice squad. And the fact of the matter is, every team, every camp has a Jalen Brooks.
No
They have
question.
somebody
No
that
question.
showed up
That
during
is
training
true.
camp
That's true.
that it's like, oh my gosh, this receiver is so great. And so you can probably get both those guys to your practice squad. So if an injury happens to one of your top 5, you could immediately move one of those guys up. You don't necessarily have to keep them on your 53. And that allows you to then go deep at some other positions. That's how I would look at it.
You could sell me on 5. It wouldn't be a tough sell because if we were talking about who's the +1 Jalen Brooks versus Semi Fehoko, it's not a hill that I'm willing to die on if that death comes at the risk of someone on defense, for example, particularly that defensive front, that you really just don't want to let go of. Isaiah Land comes to mind in that kind of
I
conversation.
kept him, so don't worry about that.
Right. Yeah. But that's my point. Like, it's that kind of guy. Like, you want a Jalen Brooks or a Simi, or you want an Isaiah Land.
When
right?
we get to defense, I'm going to blow you away with what I did on defense.
Yeah.
I think so.
All right. Let's move on. Let's get to our tight ends. Again, I think this one might be a fairly easy one to do.
It got
Let's
a lot
take
easier
4.
after injury last week. Yeah.
I think you got 4, and Jake Ferguson, Luke Schoonmaker, Peyton Hendershot, Sean McCune. We all agree?
All agree, yes.
All right, perfect. All right, let's move on. The offensive line, this gets a little dicey when you start talking about how many you actually think you will keep. So right now you've got guys like, obviously, Tyron Smith, Terrence Steele, Zach Martin, Tyler Smith, Tyler Biadasz. Those 5 will be there. Those are your starters. Then you've got guys like Awesome Richards, TJ Bass, who's come on. You got a Matt Farniok, Matt Waletzko, guys who've been here a little while. You got the veteran that you brought in, Chuma Odoga. You got guys like Josh Ball, Brock Hoffman, Alec Lindstrom. How many do you keep, and who are the names that stay outside of that top 5?
I got 10.
You got 10. Give me your other 5 outside of the top 5.
Okay. I went just naming them off in order here. Biadasz, Bass. I did mine in the orders of numbers, so the jersey numbers. Biadasz, Bass, Martin, Odoga. That hurt me, but I did it. Tyler Smith. I think Josh Ball is going to be on the roster one day, and then
they'll move him.
And then move him. Awesome Richards, Tyron Smith, Terrence Steele, Matt Waletzko. Now, this is what I did.
Who did you leave out?
I left out. This is what I did. And I'm going to freak people out with this one.
Okay.
I cut Lindstrom, the center, Hoffman, the center, and Farniak, the center.
Yeah, I was about to say, where's your backup center?
What I'm going to do is I'm going to try and get one of those guys to the practice squad, and then that is going to be, I'm going to yo-yo that guy as the backup off the practice squad is what I'm going to do.
Okay, so talk me through, what do you do in game if your center goes down?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm going to put.
So you make one of those every week will get moved up
exactly
to the active. I got you.
Exactly. I'm going to play the yo-yo game with my backup.
You don't do those 3 times, so you just rotate the 3 of them, and that gives you 9 games.
Maybe injuries take care of themselves, or something happens, and I'm able to put one of those guys on full time.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go. I'm going to cut 3 guys. Like I say, Lindstrom, Hoffman, and Farniak.
Do you risk losing Farniak? Just because offensive line is such a position.
Oh, no,
where
it is.
It's a premium place where people are looking for bodies.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it is. But I also want to keep Isaiah Land on my team.
Okay.
So that's that. Now this is where I start to play the game of who would I rather have. And I kind of feel like, okay, if Lindstrom, I don't think will get claimed. Hoffman is interesting because he's not going to fit everybody's eye. He doesn't look like your typical NFL lineman, but they really, really like him.
Yep.
Farniak has shown he can play in games. He did it last year, but I don't know if it's enough to where we'll see. I mean, there's some teams. I was talking to a team this morning that traded for a center yesterday, and they were asking me about all these centers, and I said I put them all on the street. And they're like, that's interesting. So we'll see if they get these guys through. But on my list, I did it.
I'm going. This is going to be kind of funny. I'm going 9 today, but I'll have 10 before the team flies to New York.
I got you. I know that game.
Right. So that's
a trade for one.
Yeah.
So
go look for one that's out there.
Claim one, sign one outright. So
which is also the reason why you put all those centers out there. You might not be able to get all of them. They may not all be available to you. Yeah.
So I'm going 9 with the initial cuts, but my goal is to add a +1.
Who are the 4 that you're going to keep?
Behind
the top
5, I'm going Awesome Richards, Brock Hoffman. I'm sending Josh Ball to season-ending IR.
But you'll have to get him on the roster initially.
Not if you send him. If you
he's outright just putting him on.
Oh, you're just gonna put him on. So he's gone.
He's done.
We'll revisit him next year.
Oh,
so that's where I'm at with that because this is going to what Brian is talking about, now you start to play the roster game as far as, okay, well, if I have to carry Josh Ball for one day, that means I have to risk somebody to waivers or let him go, right? Then the question becomes, how severe is Josh Ball's injury in addition to the type of injury itself? This is soft tissue, hip/groin on an offensive lineman. Reports are that it's multiple weeks. McCarthy said it's multiple weeks. This could easily drag out.
I get that, but here's where I would wonder, does it really help you? Because Josh Ball, I think we all agree, is a player that really needs work. He needs some development. He's not going to get development if he's not even practicing with your team. So what's the point of putting him on IR? You're basically just saying a player that needs development can't get it, and we're going to start back over next year where he already is. Because I just don't know if that's helping.
Because my question on him is, let's say in that situation, right? And you're completely correct. Yeah. But if he's not ready to even begin his on-field work until November, hypothetically, December, what did you just do to gain that?
That's maybe 2.5 months of on-field work for him still, because
there's an entire offseason coming at that.
But no, the coaches value those practice sessions because those practice sessions, you can't get that back in the offseason, right? That's time that he could be getting work, that they could be looking at him, they could be developing him. I still think it's valuable time that they just don't get back.
I kept him active because I know in November I can't find an offensive tackle.
Very true.
I mean, I've sat there and my personnel board in November looks like a Thanksgiving Day turkey after everybody's had their, they sit there. It's nothing but skin and bones.
Carve that thing up.
That board looks awful. And I know if I have an opportunity, if I can bring Josh Ball back, and you're not wrong with him, it's rehab. The practice stuff will be important, but I know in November I can't find a tackle, and that's why I'm keeping him active.
Then the question becomes, what was he as far as ability concerned, as far as development? And where was he?
He had 1 foot in the parking lot until he played really well against Seattle.
Right before
I was ready to move on. Right. Him and Adoga and guys like that.
So that's my point. If he had 1 foot in the parking lot before he suffered a major injury, and when he is available to come back, he's not coming back in his prime form, and then his prime form had 1 foot out the door anyway.
It's like
then it becomes maybe the Jason Peters conversation on the back half, because we talked about that. Yeah. You bring in a veteran, particularly if Jason Peters, for example, is available. You're not going to get 17 plus the postseason from him. If things are skinny and you're looking at the bones of the situation in late November, early December, you can get 8-9 games out of Jason Peters. So that becomes the conversation that I'm more comfortable with having. I mean, we'll see. More comfortable with having versus.
Man, you're kneeling down, rolling dice doing that one.
Yeah, that's a lot, man.
So that's where I am on it. My 4 would be Austin Richards, Brock Hoffman, Matt Waletzko, and Matt Farniok.
All right. Amber.
The only
Wait, did I say TJ Bass?
You did.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
Okay.
You initially did. I didn't know if you just said it.
I didn't say
I know you said
initially.
it initially. Yeah, for sure.
So there you go.
And last game, I was talking on the sideline with Tyler Smith, and I asked him, I'm like, hey, who's the guy who has made the biggest jump in the O-line? And he said TJ Bass.
He's been playing really
by
crazy.
far.
Yeah,
he's done an amazing job. So that's always exciting to see and hear from a teammate. But I feel like there's somebody that's not on here, a name. Like, I don't feel completely confident in this group of backups as far as like, is this it? Are we starting the whole season with this? So I'm with you, Patrick, in like, there's a name we do not know of just yet that's going to come.
Maybe that keeps Ball on the injured list. They find somebody, they trade for somebody, they pick somebody up. But I'm just going to try and cover my bases by having a guy available in that time.
There's a shadow guy out there.
Yeah.
We're going to take our final break. We're going to come back. We're going to get to this defense.
We're not.
Defense is going to be a tough one to cut. We'll talk about that when we come back. DallasCowboys.com radio.
Todd thought it would be secure to jog in the cheetah savanna. Todd believed the big cat repellent he bought online was reliable. And now, Todd is trying to be faster than this cheetah that can run 80 miles per hour. But the good news is, Todd has AT&T 5G that is fast, reliable, and secure. And he learned the best thing to do is stop running and toss her the backpack with the beef stew. AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure. It's not complicated.
5G requires compatible plan and device. 5G may not be available in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
Don't put off getting your oil changed, Dallas. Take 5 Oil Change, a proud partner of the Cowboys, is faster than you think. There's no appointment needed and no waiting room. Yep, you heard that correctly. Take 5 is so fast, you don't even have to get out of your car. You can take advantage of Take 5's fast, friendly, and simple service at any of their locations across the Dallas area. And remember, at Take 5, you stay in your car because they're faster than you think. Take 5, the official oil change of the Dallas Cowboys.
It's the official men's skincare brand of the Dallas Cowboys, Jack Black. And right now, Cowboys fans can get 15% off their $75 order. Plus, because every deal needs a playmaker, your order will include a free 5-piece skincare set and free shipping. The Jack Black Playmaker is 4 of Jack's favorites and a full-sized intense therapy lip balm. Make a play for the Playmaker at getjackblack.com/Cowboys with the code CowboysVIP. That's getjackblack.com/Cowboys with the code CowboysVIP.
They say champions are remembered, but legends are never forgotten. United Ag and Turf offers a winning lineup of John Deere equipment built to tackle any challenge on and off the field. Legendary John Deere tractors, combines, residential mowers, commercial mowers, compact construction equipment, Gator utility vehicles, and a full line of golf and sports turf equipment. United Ag and Turf, the official Ag and Turf equipment supplier of the Dallas Cowboys. Visit UnitedAgAndTurf.com to find a location near you.
Back to the break.
Oh, this is me. Yeah, this be me. I was trying to figure out about Chauncey Gilson. I played him at defensive tackle. Do you eat, sleep, and breathe Dallas Cowboys football? Tell us how you spice up the game for a chance to be named the 2023 Cowboys Fan of the Year, presented by Captain Morgan, and win exclusive prizes plus a trip to the Super Bowl. That's Super Bowl 58. Nominate yourself or another today at DallasCowboys.com/Fan of the Year.
Okay, here we are. We're in the final segment of the break. We have cut the offense. Now it's time to cut the defense. And actually, the way I want to look at this is instead of breaking it down by position, I'm going to do front 7 and then the back half of the defense. And the reason why is because, you can start playing these games of, well, where are we going to put Micah for the sake of a number? Let's not play those games. Let's just say.
You knew we were going to play.
Yeah, y'all going to play that game. I already know. Y'all already gave me that indication. So we're not going to play that game. So what we're going to do is I want you to talk me through who are the guys you're keeping on the defensive line and at linebacker position, and who are the notable cuts. All right? So let's start first with you, Brian.
Okay, well, to keep, now this is where I went Land, Williams, Fowler. You want me to take the defensive tackles too? You want all the front 7?
You can talk about them first as defensive ends, and then you can morph into the defensive tackles and then the linebackers.
Those are some ends. Mozzie Smith at tackle, DeMarcus Lawrence at end, Dorrance Armstrong at end, Junior Fehoko at end, Hankins at tackle, Osa at tackle, and Chauncey Golston as a tackle is what I did there. So that gave me 10 defensive linemen.
Who are the notable guys that were left off?
The notable guys that I released off that list, I took off notables. Quentin Bohanna and Gallimore were the 2 notables. Everybody else, Johnson, Alarcon, Wheat, Banogu, is that how you say it? Banogu. That's those are the guys that I took off the list. But the notables, I to Quentin Bohanna and Neville Gallimore off the list.
You ready to give up on those guys at this point?
I moved on.
All right.
This is interesting. All right, so I'm just going to give you the defensive line.
All right.
And so for me, you got DeMarcus Lawrence, Mozzie Smith, Oso Digizua, Micah Parsons. That you can split hairs. Is he, DE or is he linebacker? But he's there. Sam Williams, Jonathan Hankins. I kept Neville Gallimore, Dorrance Armstrong, Junior Fehoko, Dante Fowler. Notable cuts for me: Quentin Bohanna and Chauncey Golston. So,
did you say Land?
Did you say Land?
Oh,
right?
and I say Land. Land.
You are keeping
No,
Land.
I'm keeping Land.
Okay,
I'm keeping Land.
Okay, so you're walking away from Golston and Bohanna.
Quentin Bohanna and Chauncey Golston are my notable cuts. So Isaiah Land makes my 53-man roster.
Got it. Okay. And what are your linebackers?
Linebackers: Leighton Vander Esch, Damone Clark. This is where it gets wild because the problem I have is Jabril Cox versus Devin Harper versus Malik Jefferson. Jefferson came on strong. Jaguars went down with a foot injury. Didn't play since.
Injury settlement.
Yeah. Devin Harper, though. So it's Devin Harper versus Jabril Cox. 3 minimum. I'm probably running 4 because I lost to Marvion Overshown. So I keep Devin Harper and Jabril Cox. And then you're gonna ask both of those guys to do some special teams.
What's the deal with Jabril Cox?
What do you mean?
I hear mixed opinions.
Started off camp
and
very
he's been kind of on and off.
Started off camp very strong, which rolled off of a strong OTAs and mini camp. The back half of camp cooled down a bit, but I wonder if that's true outright or if that's true contextually based on what we saw DeMarvion Overshown putting on the field, and then we looked at Jabril Cox and said, why aren't you doing what the rookie's doing? So it might be a combination of the two things, but losing DeMarvion Overshown, I can't run light at linebacker. Even if I'm looking for Marquise Bell to try to contribute in that flex role, I still can't run light at true linebacker.
That's a place I'm looking to claim. If I'm going to probably claim players, I'm looking at linebackers that are able to claim.
Yeah, because what you're really looking for are special teams guys that are at the linebacker position. You can probably find those guys out on the.
They play so much
on the waiver wire.
They play so much dime, so much nickel on this team. I wonder. It kind of swayed me. I moved on from Jabril Cox. I think there were some things. His strength is supposedly coverage, and there were times where he wasn't good in coverage, and there were times where you watch him play at the point of attack and he really wasn't good defending the run. So that's just me. I've not talked to anybody in the organization about that at all, but I kind of feel like that they'll move on there.
So you're thinking LVE, Damone Clark are the only two you're keeping, and then obviously Micah, if Micah is listed as a linebacker.
Exactly. I think to me, like I've listed Micah as a linebacker is what I've done.
So those three.
I've got Parsons, Clark, Harper. And,
you're keeping Harper, okay.
Yeah, and then Van Der Esch.
Yep.
So I got 4 with the possibility of claiming some guys if I need to.
All right, Amber.
See, I'm right with I like Brian's list. The only guy that I don't think I'm ready to move on from just yet is Neville Gallimore. But then for that name, I'm not sure who am I taking off.
It's probably going to it's Gallimore versus Bohanna versus Chauncey Golston. That's kind of what it boils down to.
And I think to me right now, he's slightly ahead of Bohanna, just because based on every time that I've looked, it's always been more of Gallimore that I've seen versus Bohanna. So that I think, that's the only change. And then my concerns about Jabril Cox, just from things that I've heard around the building, just mixed opinions about him, but totally agree as far as bodies, you need it, unless you bring in some other guy that you pick up from another team that's cut.
All right. Real quick, I moved on from Bohanna and then also Gallimore. I don't want any excuses for not to play Mozzie Smith. That's what I'm thinking about.
I think that moving on from Bohanna does eliminate that excuse.
Yeah.
I don't know that releasing Gallimore would create that excuse. I think Gallimore's presence doesn't change the Mozzie Smith rep count for me. And
I think Chauncey Golston would be my 3 or my under tackle.
That's the only.
That's where I think Gallimore would be. But I don't want anybody telling me, oh, we've got 2 guys ahead of Mozzie Smith.
Yeah, no.
Just play him. Yeah. Either figure out he's good enough or he's not. Yeah. So I'm not going to leave an excuse there.
And I do wonder, though, when you start thinking about it from that standpoint, like, does that mean that you're going to have to really count on Golston to play a lot? Because at that point, you only got, I don't think Mozzie or Hankins are going to be lined up at 3 technique. No. Unless they're in a heavy format where they're really just trying to stop the run.
Actually, it's funny where Mozzie's played some wide technique, wide 3, and it's actually looked pretty good doing it.
Yeah.
Because he just gets, just straight up, go right up the field kind of a thing.
So you think he might be able, there may be some opportunities for him and Hankins to be on the field at the same time?
Exactly. I'm keeping him as that one or that nose. But I also know that there's been times where he has played a wide shade, is what they call the outside shoulder, and he's been okay. So, but I don't want to hear like there's 2 guys ahead of him and they don't want to play him. Play him. Just play him and figure it out.
See where he goes. All right, let's real quick get to the defensive backs. Another tough position to cut. You got cornerbacks where you got Trayvon Diggs and Stephon Gilmore and Deron Bland and Jordan Lewis as probably your top 4, and then a guy like C.J. Goodwin who's your special teamer. Do you go deeper than that, or do you see yourself cutting people like Kelvin Joseph, Nashawn Wright, or Eric Scott?
I go 5 cornerbacks. Obviously, Diggs, Gilmore, Bland. I activate Jordan Lewis this week. There's my 4, and my 5th is C.J. Goodwin because he's your definitive special teams ace, and you just don't move on from him.
So you move away from Nashawn Wright, who's a guy that still is, I think, obviously somebody that you like.
Practice squad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I put
practice
him on.
squad.
I put
he would
him
absolutely
on,
make it to the practice
Yeah, I
squad.
put Wright on the active roster for one day, and I'm going to put him on IR the next.
That's fair.
Is what I'm going to do, and then that way I could
Get him
kinda,
later, yeah.
I could just kind of keep him in the building.
Yeah.
I think there's some flexibility with McQuamu if you want to play him at corner too. If
They
you
did
wanna
that
go-
last year for a game or two.
Yeah, I think Jordan, you're absolutely right. Everything I'm hearing about Jordan Lewis is they're the same plan that they did with Gallup last year. You know, keep him active and let him get ready.
Okay. What are you thinking about? So you both are willing to part ways with both Kelvin Joseph and Eric Scott.
Yes, I did.
Yes, I think that while Eric Scott has had a strong camp as far as practices are concerned, as far as the games are concerned, he's been caught a few times with his eyes in the backfield. There's still some development there. I'm still high on the kid. I think that his ceiling is quite high. Just not quite ready yet, but definitely earned a spot on the practice squad, develop him there more, and I think he'll make an impact at some point before this year is over. Kelvin Joseph, you can try to get him on the practice squad as far as trying to save face on, what point he was drafted in. He's shown some signs in the past couple of games. So at worst, sure, practice squad spot because you're going to need several cornerbacks on your practice squad anyway.
And yeah, I'm ready to. Dang it! I'm sorry. It's hard sometimes to be professional and separate, feelings from what you see. But I do think, despite some of the misses he's had, I do think that he's made somewhat of a jump, and I'm talking about Kelvin Joseph here. I think he's grown, and he is a guy that can possibly stay on your practice squad, and not necessarily somebody's gonna come out. And I the same thing goes to a lot of these guys on the back end that I think that they could be on the practice squad and not risk some other team come and pick it up or sign them, and you still have them at the tip of your hands whenever needed. But so how many guys was that total?
I think we came up to 5 is what we're kind of agreeing is 5 is our number at cornerback. And then you got safety where you've got Donovan Wilson, Jaron Kearse, and Malik Hooker. You know will be here. You assume Marquise Bell will be a part of that mix as well. So that's at 4. Then you would also assume Israel McQuamu's probably in that mix.
Yeah.
What happens with guys like Wanye Thomas or Tyler Coyle? So where do you go with the safety position?
I went long there. My guys are Wilson, Kearse, Hooker, Thomas, Bell is what I went there.
And you let McQuamu go?
McQuamu I have is at corner safety.
So he's going to be in the mix. He's going to make the team, but you're not putting him in either position.
Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
I got you.
Yeah.
Same thing, kind of how we look at Chauncey Golston.
Absolutely.
Got it.
Yeah, he nailed it. That's exactly where I am with it because the reason I only ran 5 at corner is because I know Izzy gives me flexibility between safety and cornerback, but in doing so, I got to run long at safety. So
and
you got your
gotta
top
add
3.
the whole linebacker situation
Right,
as
same
well.
with Marquise Bell.
Yeah.
Is he a linebacker? Is he a safety? So that makes me run long at safety. So you got the top 3, Hooker, Dono, and Kearse, and then behind them, you got Marquise Bell, Israel McQuamu,
And you want to keep Wanye Thomas. Yes.
Yeah.
You agree with that, Amber?
Yes.
All right, and I think for our specialists, Sieg, Aubrey, Anger, we feel certain those
Aubrey
are the
made
guys.
the team.
Yeah.
Were you guys happy about that? That field goal, I thought that made me just at least know he's got the power. Now, 59 yards is 59 yarder, but he has the power if you get into one of those game situations where he has the ability to do it. Mm-hmm. And that makes you a little bit intrigued.
I say he earned his spot. He made the team. Does that mean that I'm saying that his spot for the year is completely locked in? No, because I think Jerry Jones has a little bit of PTSD from the Brett Maher situation. So if Brandon Aubrey, heaven forbid, goes out there and starting to miss extra points at some point in the season, then it's kind of iffy. Yeah. But as we have these roster cuts, the kid has absolutely earned his spot.
Yeah, I think he closed the preseason very nicely because going into week 2 of the preseason, I was still having doubts, or as far as I didn't get to see enough of him. The Cowboys didn't give him enough opportunities, and it depends how the game is going and all that. But I think that last game at home against the Raiders kind of put a bow on that and made me feel a lot better for the start of the season.
That is a wrap, and we wish the best of luck to all those folks out there today who will be losing their jobs. Let's also remember that. But good luck to them, and we'll be back on Thursday. We'll have more talk. We'll kind of dissect what the Cowboys did with their roster, maybe even any signings that they may make. We'll talk about all that on Thursday, and then next week we get you started. We're into the season. Until then, for Brian Broaddus, Patrick Walker, Amber Garcia, I'm Derek Eagleton. This has been The Break, live on DallasCowboys.com radio.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys? Yeah!